Hey guys, so today I am talking about my 20s. This is essentially a funeral for my 20s. I turned 30 on March 1st and I made a coffin-shaped brownie instead of a cake. I don't like cake. For my birthday, in lieu of a cake, I always have either brownie or Rice Krispie treat. And this year I decided to make it in the shape of a coffin as, just to show closing the door on my 20s. So a lot of people, for some reason, and I never understood why, even as a child, why people feel like turning 30 is such a sad time, as if your youth is over. And I just don't feel that way. I'm very optimistic about my 30s. I think my 30s are going to be better than my 20s. And 30 really to me is the new 20. And if you look at the way that people age, it's different. It's slower now than it was 30 years ago, 40, 50 years ago. So I think that the attitudes that people have about the 30s, the 40s, the 50s is just, I don't know. I don't think it's a fair attitude. So like I said, I'm really excited for my 30s. I think this is going to be the best. These are going to be the best years of my life. With that said, I can't talk too much of my 30s because I just started last week, but I'm going to tell you guys about the ups and downs of my 20s and life lessons I've learned. And on any of these topics, or anything else really, I'd love to hear from you guys regardless, about what you would like to hear from me. If you'd like to hear more from me about different things I've been through, different lessons I've learned along the way, I've got tons of advice for people going into their 20s. If there's any topics in this video that you want to hear more about, let me know and I will do a video on those. I'm a pretty open book. So, okay, without any further ado, I started off age 20. I became a mother for the first time. I had my first child, a boy, and his name's Damien. And it's funny because I've always been physically and emotionally a late bloomer. In every way in my life. And most people, when they have a child, when they become pregnant or when they first have their child, they're filled with a lot of anxiety and trepidation, and they're not sure of themselves, and they're very concerned that they are not going to be able to provide for their child what they need to, and it's a scary time for most people. For me, I was unique in the sense that I never felt an ounce of an anxiety about becoming a mother. I knew that it was what I was meant to do, and I knew that I would do a good job. I assumed that I would make mistakes, and I have. But I always knew and felt in my heart that I was meant to be a mother, and that I didn't feel like it was too soon. I felt like I had a handle on things, and for the most part, I really have. So yeah, I never felt that anxiety. I had him, and he was, of course, from there on out, the center of my world. And I spent every moment possible with him. He slept in my bed. To this day, even he usually sleeps in my bed. And I just always kept him close, and I took him everywhere. I didn't ever want to spend time away from him, really. So yeah, of course, he is one of the most important, milestones in my life, is him becoming a part of it. So then when I was 21, that was the end of my marriage to his father, my ex-husband. We had our ups and downs. We never really had a healthy relationship, although we kind of thought we did. I think we both thought that we had a healthy relationship. We just didn't really know any better. But there was a lot of ups and downs, and at 21, it hit the breaking point where it was at the point of no return. And I don't want to go too far into that just because of how personal that is, and also out of respect to him, I want to make sure that if I do talk about that at all, that I want to make sure that, just because some people might know him, or I don't want to disrespect him in any way, but we didn't treat each other well, and we weren't capable of treating each other very well. Honestly, neither one of us were both of us had things that we needed to work on. So it was a very hard decision, but I decided to go ahead with a divorce, and it was one of the worst years of my life. So 21 was horrible for me. A lot of people think 21 is great. People can drink legally and whatever else, but it was one of the worst years of my life, hands down. Learning how to go without seeing your son as much as you want to is absolutely heart-wrenching, heartbreaking. It was very hard, and I felt like I was mentally spiraling out of control as well as emotionally. It was so hard. And I have a lot of advice for people too who are going through divorce or separation. When you're going through a divorce, it's hard, period. Doesn't matter like how ready you are for it. It is hard. And if you have a child, it's 10 times harder. And, you know, if you were like me, and I was still immature at that time, I was still very young, and you can't, one, like keep your mouth shut about things. You can't keep some things to yourself. You know, you're prone to emotional, you know, like just like a lot of crying and outbursts and that sort of thing, and losing focus. It's going to be way, way worse. Like, I feel like I made it even worse on myself. I mean, you can't control what the other person does, but you can control how you behave, like, and how you react to things. And, yeah, I definitely have a lot of advice for people going through a divorce, you know, what not to do, and also what I wish I would have done. But, you know, the worst thing about it, like I said, was, you know, our custody was split, like pretty much 50-50. Like, it was a little more towards, like, I got a little bit more, but it still, to me, it was not enough. And, that was, yeah, like I said, that was one of the worst things I had to go through, was learning how to not have my son around as much as I wanted him to be around, as much as I was used to having him around. So it was a very painful time. 22, I met and fell in love with my soulmate, my husband, the father of my other children. And it was a whirlwind romance. And I go into all of that in my Valentine's video if you want to hear all about that. I feel like we have one of the most beautiful love stories ever. And yeah, the timing is like horrendous, because it was like right as I was like getting out of my marriage from my ex. It was like, I went from like, it was like divorced and then like married again within the same year. So, and a lot of people judged me for that. And I completely understand, looking back on it, why people thought like, how is that going to work? How are you going to like come out of a marriage, fall in love with somebody else, and then like run off, get married, and have a baby with them that quickly? And so I understand why people were skeptical, but I mean, it just so happened that for us, we were meant to be together, and we've built a beautiful marriage and a beautiful relationship that has only gotten better with time. So yeah, and that marriage resulted in our daughter, our first child together, our daughter Avalon. And so she's 7 now. And, so yeah, that was 22. Yep. 23. For a little bit of backstory about 23, I've had schizophrenia for my entire life. And if you guys want to hear about, how I deal with schizophrenia, what that's like for me, and whatever questions you have, let me know, and I will definitely do a video on that as well for those who are interested. But I've had schizophrenia my entire life. And I don't want to make this video too long, so I can't give you like the whole backstory on that. Like I said, I can dedicate a whole video to that if you would like me to. But I was refusing from the ages of 18 to 24 to get any treatment. I didn't want to have to listen to anything that any of the therapists said. I didn't believe them. I didn't trust them. Kind of thought they were out to get me. Didn't like the medications that they were putting me on because the side effects were so horrible. So I was refusing all treatment. But when I was 23, my husband basically kind of like forced me to go to therapy. And I did. And he was like, you need to talk to them. You need to listen to them. And you need to do what they tell you to do. Like if they suggest a medication, if they want to put you on a medication, you need to do it. Because this is just too much. You have to do it, you know? Not only for yourself, but for the kids, you know, because it's like kids don't want to see their mom constantly being in a state of fear, confusion, and crying, you know? And it didn't, you know, it's like, although I showed my kids lots of affection, I was always making sure I met their needs and everything like that, and I was always good to them, they were, I think, you know, they were getting close to the age, you know, like, well, at least my older one was getting close to the age where he would see me crying a lot, and he would, you know, like do things like toddlers do, trying to show comfort and that sort of thing, you know. And it was like, you know, eventually he's going to get older and he's just going to be like, you know, it's like, we need to be healthy to, you know, we need to try to make sure that we are healthy, and that's good for our kids, you know. So I realized that I didn't want to raise my kids to, you know, I didn't want my kids to just see their mother unhappy all the time and sad and, like I said, paranoid and everything else. So I decided, I was like, you know what, I'm essentially fighting for my life, you know, because these people are my life. I love them so much. And if they're all constantly concerned about me, then I've failed in a way. And so I finally did. I threw myself entirely into therapy and what everything they told me to do. And it saved my life. So if you're struggling with mental illness and you're feeling maybe a little paranoid about therapy, if you're not jiving well with your therapist, just don't give up. Keep trying. Go to different therapists if you need to, and listen to them. They really do care about you and want you to turn out as good as possible, as happy and healthy as possible, and you should listen. Because like I said, it saved my life, completely turned my life around, and I'm so blessed in so many ways. I can't even tell you. Just get help if you need it. So many people care. Trust me on that. So yeah, so that's what happened for me whenever I was 23. Now when I was 24, it was my turn to be the caregiver. My husband had fallen into a depression. And I can't go into a whole lot of the backstory with him because I haven't asked him if it was okay to talk about his childhood or anything like that. He'd always had depression, but he really sunk into it whenever I was 24. He was 24 at the same time as well. And he didn't believe that he needed help. It took that, like, pretty much that entire year for me to convince him to get help. And it was crazy because I had never been the one who was trying to hold up a mentally ill person. So it was crazy. It was like he pulled me all through that, and it was my turn to pull him through, which is beautiful. It's like a terrible thing, but it's a beautiful thing at the same time. More beautiful than anything else, really, because I mean, it was just unconditional love. And he even says that on the other end of it, after all that, he loved me more than he ever had before. Like, it really strengthened our relationship. Now, I don't recommend if somebody's like extremely mentally ill and they need like a ton of professional help and they're refusing to get it, at some point you can't keep sticking around with that because it's not good for you. And especially if you have children, then it wouldn't be good for the children either. But my husband was willing to get help, and I helped him through it. He got on medication and therapy as well. And he's like a whole nother person now. Like, it is just amazing how much he has healed from his childhood and past abuse. Everything, it's just honestly blows my mind how amazing, how happy he is, how healthy he is. It's like I can't even explain it. Like, you know, like I said, you have to know when to give up. You have to know when you need to push ahead. And that was the time to push ahead and be there for him and be the rock for my husband. So I'm honored that I got to do that. So yeah, so 25, it was whenever, you know, he was healed. And we had a wonderful time at age 25. We went to Disney with our daughter. My son was at his dad's house, but we went to Florida with my daughter so that she could meet my husband's side of the family. And we went to Disney while we were there, had a wonderful time. It was so fun. Or no, it's not Disney. It's called Islands of Adventure. It's where like the Harry Potter thing is and everything. Oh my gosh, she loved like Seuss Landing, and we have so many wonderful pictures from that time. We had the time of our lives. We definitely want to go back. So yeah, we had a really good time that year. We moved to Colorado because my husband got out of the Air Force and he got a job in Colorado. We absolutely loved it there. And, so we were there. We had a great time. It was a wonderful year. One of the best years of my life. It was 25. 26, we ran into some financial troubles. So basically, you know, my husband wanted to go to school, use his GI Bill. And so his plan was to use the GI Bill and go to school. And they pay you, for those of you who don't know, they pay for your housing. You get like a housing allowance. Well, we moved in with some family members who, you know, invited us to come stay. And I feel like we should have known better. I have to give you guys this advice. Don't move in with family. It's bad. It's bad for the relationship, especially if it was already a bad relationship to begin with. So we moved in with them, thinking, you know, this will help while he's going to school, you know, because we'd be making a little bit less money. And I was teaching dance that year, and I was loving teaching dance. I was really enjoying it. I also taught dance up in Colorado, by the way. But I was teaching dance down in Florida, and it felt like my career was really starting to take off. But then it was just like, okay, we can't stay with them anymore. It was just a really unhealthy relationship. We need to find somewhere else. So whenever the next semester started, we're like, let's go back to California, because that's where we had lived our entire adult life up until that point. So we moved back to California, and my husband continued schooling there. That was 26. So it just felt like we were like moving around a lot and just trying to like find our groove and everything. My husband wanted to become an aerospace engineer, and that required a lot of schooling. So, so he like started in Florida, and then like we had to leave, so find somewhere else. We moved to California, moved in with a friend, and stayed with him for a few months, moved out onto into our own apartment. We got this gym membership at this wonderful place called California Family Fitness. We absolutely loved it there. It was our home away from home. Our whole family, we were really getting into shape. They had a kids club, pool, water, like a water park, like a splash zone and everything like that. Oh my gosh, we had so much fun. We were there pretty much every day. My husband he'd go to school during the day, and then the afternoon and on the weekends, we would just spend like the whole time there. And I miss it. Like I would move back to California for a lot of reasons, but also for California Family Fitness, best gym ever. So everything was great there. And, he finished up his associates of science there. And then, whenever we were 27 is, whenever I found out we were pregnant. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait, no, that was 27. I mixed 26 and 27 together. Okay. Anyway, when I was 28, I was pregnant with my son, our baby, our younger one, Cade, who is going to be 2 in June. So I had Cade whenever I was 28, the summer, so not this past summer, but the one before that. Like I said, everything was just like perfect. He was born, I had preeclampsia. So they put me in the hospital about 3 weeks early. About 3.5 weeks early, they put me in the hospital because they were like, okay, it's getting bad. We might need to just go ahead and induce you. So once they induced me, for some reason, nobody checked on an ultrasound or anything. This all could have been prevented. But they decided to induce me instead of just put me into a C-section. They should have just put me into a C-section, because if they would have just taken an ultrasound and looked into my stomach, they could have seen that my son's umbilical cord was wrapped around his neck. And from there was only this much left of umbilical cord. So the cord was wrapped around his neck, and it was so tight and so short that they couldn't get in and cut it off. A lot of times if babies have it wrapped around their neck, then they can clamp it and cut. There wasn't room for that. So it would have been impossible for him to come out of me without hanging himself. So I had to go through vaginal labor, or well, I guess like labor, and he started like coming out vaginally a little bit. And then I had to go through a C-section. So it was just like, if you guys would have just done an ultrasound, then I could have had him yesterday by C-section, so that was a scary process. First of all, I had never had surgery like that before, and it was terrifying. And I was hyperventilating, and yeah, I can tell that whole story too. I'm like near my son's birthday, I'm going to tell that whole story. But anyway, he was born, he was beautiful. He talked right away. He was like making all kinds of little noises, and it was adorable. And, the recovery from that was absolute hell. C-section recoveries are absolutely horrible, horrendous. But like I said, I'll do a video on that. But I had my baby, and I love him so, so much. And we were all just so happy. Like I said, that was another wonderful year of my life. And then my husband got a promotion in his job, which moved us to Virginia. And we loved it there. He was working like a lot of long hours, but he was definitely working towards something because everybody there really loved him. And management, they ended up this past year here, when I was 29, they gave him an opportunity to manage his own lab. Well, like a lab that already exists, but manage his own lab by himself up north. We're in the Albany area of New York. And so he asked me what I thought about it, and I was like, yeah, keep climbing that ladder, babe. Like that's your dream. Keep climbing. I'm gonna be here for you. And just in case you guys were wondering, I do homeschool my kids. So that's not a problem at all. We can pick up and leave at any time, which is wonderful for my husband's career, because, there's like no strings attached. We can move. If he needs to move, we need to move. So, you know, that's been great. I do like it up here. I like our apartment. Or it's actually like a house. It's like a duplex. So that's where we are now. And then I started this channel back here this last summer. So I think I might actually get into teaching dance too again at some time. I'm not sure. I might start just performing. I might make a dance performing channel for YouTube. I'm not sure yet. But I'm not in a rush, really. I mean, like I said, I'm really happy. I love my family so much. I've had so many ups and downs, but here I am, and I would do all the downs again to have those ups because it was definitely worth it. If you're going through a hard time, if you feel like the world has nothing more to offer you and you just don't want to hang in there, just hang in there, because I've been there, and I can promise you that a beautiful life is coming for you. So, well, that wraps up my funeral for my 20s. I just want to say thank you guys so much for supporting me. It really touches me how kind so many of you guys are and how supportive you guys are. I really appreciate it. If you want to join my Friends of Fairy Market Facebook page, I'll put the link down in the description box below so that so we can talk at any time. You guys can give me advice. Let me know what kind of scents would you like to see, and what kind of products would you like to see in my line that I'm going to be launching this year. All right, well, thank you so much again. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.